Previously on Iyanla Fix My Life, two gay pastors living a lie.
How do you go into God's house with your heart full of, I'm wrong, I'm inadequate, and God doesn't love me?
Loved ones finally hear the truth.
When you're dead, you want your son to kind of be like you. I'm still trying to grasp it.
A family devastated by years of deception.
Between 2006 and 2008, I had affairs with 5 different men.
Tell her what that means, that you had affairs. Book, chapter, and verse.
Iyanla tackles an emotionally charged issue head on.
Do you tell your children that their father going to hell? Y'all are gonna have to do this together. Otherwise, these kids are gonna be ripped to shreds. You gotta understand that there are some people that will never sit in your ministry, ever. There will be a price to pay.
I did want to address the whole why I didn't tell my HIV status. It wasn't so much that was personal. You just felt like it's like a HIPAA violation. And then I thought about it long and hard because, like I said, 3 people who watched the broadcast later asked me why I didn't say anything, and they felt like I was hiding something. I'm not hiding anything. If I was positive, I feel like I would have no problem sharing that. I feel like I would talk about it and be an advocate, and I'm a huge supporter of individuals who are positive. A lot of my friends are positive. I'm just not one of them, but by the grace of God. So yeah, I want to address that. Anybody have anything else? Thank you. When I decided to do the show, the question about have I reached back to my home church or denomination? No, they really don't want anything to do with me, and I'm perfectly fine with that. They're struggling with a lot of stuff. Pastor Lewis, when I did the show, when you talk about my openness, I did, a lot of people ask why would I choose to discuss something so personal and so private in such a public way. And more than anything, I did it because I wanted a better relationship with my family. When we filmed the show last March, I had not talked to my mother in months, right? Didn't have a good relationship with my father. And I trusted Iyanla. And so when I did that show, I didn't want to really do it on television, but I trusted Iyanla because I read a bunch of her books and I watched the show and I trusted her work. And so I said, what I told myself was, if I'm going to go on national television and tell all my business and create a bullseye on my back, which it has been a bullseye on my back. I've been in Walgreens and I've been on Facebook and people talk about how they wish somebody would blow my brains out while I was preaching so that my blood could pour down from the pulpit. But I did the show, and when I did it, I said, I'm not going to hold anything back. I love you too. I said, I'm not going to hold anything back. If I'm going to tell all my business, if I'm going to do this, then I'm going to be completely vulnerable. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to be completely transparent. I'm going to come in, do whatever I have to do to make it worth the sacrifice, right? Because everything has a cost. And so I was so glad. It was so hard when you spend so much of your life, in the family I grew up in, the church I grew up in, we spend so much energy creating a image, right? Look right, dress right, speak right, do all these things. And so, exactly, so many of us send our representative to church, and we cover up. And that was the whole thing of Paul Lyons Dunbar, the mask. I had a different mask at church, a different mask at school, a different mask with this friend, a different mask with that friend. And I said, if I'm going to go on TV in front of millions of people, it wasn't about that. It was about me doing what I needed to do and helping other people. And so I did it. And so many people have come to me to say, thank you so much for your truth. Thank you. Helped me with my child. And all of us at some point in our life have had something that we didn't want other people to know, something that we struggled with, something that caused us some type of burden, some type of issue. And in that place where you can feel your connection with God, then you can't stay there. I had a young guy who was sat down because his pastor found out he was gay. He was a musician at the church. And I always argue that the pastor didn't care that he was gay. The pastor cared that he was so open with his homosexuality. So he sat him down and he wanted to leave. And his family was like, no, don't leave. If you leave, he wins, right? If you leave, then they'll just win. But as I told him, I'm sorry, I keep looking at this dog is going crazy. As I told him, there's no way after you and this pastor have had this big blow up about your theology, about you being gay, how in the world are you going to be able to listen to anything that that pastor has to say? And that's exactly what happened. He went to the church and he sat there and the pastor started preaching and he had flashbacks of their big argument and everything the pastor said. And of course he knows all the pastor's business. And so it just comes off as real hypocritical. It just comes off as crazy. And so you can't. The difficult part is so many of the open and affirming churches don't speak to our black church experience, our black church feeling, right? So, if you grew up in a traditional black church, the music, the style of sermon, even the way we dress, the energy of the service, it's very specific to our culture. And unfortunately, most open and affirming churches, especially in, medium-sized, small cities, are very white, are very European, are very different in the way that they approach theology. And so, exactly, white people, Christ, black people, Jesus, exactly. And so it can feel really awkward. I have a friend who has a saying, I go to these churches and it feels like I haven't even been to church because, the music is different. The preaching is more of a conversation. It's very regimented by their little bulletin, by their little pipe organ and the little music that they play. And so the black church feels it feels best to us, but it's hard to find that black church that is so intentional. You will find churches, you'll find a lot of black churches where they just don't address LGBT issues at all. And so it may not be open and affirming, but it will be, we're just not going to go there. I also find that a lot of my black LGBT brothers and sisters don't want to go to a gay church.